Hi everyone! If you try to play Hitman 3 with HDR enabled, then you already know that something is wrong with the game. Let's try to analyze and understand why the image looks so bad. In one of my videos, I explained that when you watch HDR video, for example YouTube video or a movie in a streaming service, the video file has metadata about peak brightness and other parameters. Your TV reads this data and does tone mapping automatically optimizes the video brightness settings to the brightness available to your TV. But when you connect a game console or PC and try to output an HDR image, then the signal has no metadata. Your TV doesn't understand what brightness is displayed and how to correctly do tone mapping. In order for the image to look correct on your TV, you must manually set the peak brightness and black level limits for your TV. This is what the HDR calibration settings are for. I can make you happy that Hitman 3 has problems with both of these parameters, so the game remains not optimized for your TV, although you try to configure everything correctly. Before we move on to the game settings, you must turn off your TV's tone mapping modes, set the correct full or limited dynamic range, and find on rtings.com your TV's peak brightness. So let's start with the peak brightness parameter. The max intensity option is responsible for setting. Max intensity is the best way to measure TV brightness I've ever seen in games. Seriously, multiply the max intensity value at 100 and you will know the peak brightness of your TV. But the problem is that this settings is useless. The peak brightness you set here absolutely doesn't match the peak brightness you see in the game. Of course, this setting somehow changes the peak brightness at the beginning, up to about 8. Then the real peak brightness of the game stops at 1000 nits. And doesn't change in any way. You can see the link to the table in the description. Moreover, this is the peak brightness of light sources in the game, for example lights, glare, sun, etc. In the video about the HDR settings for Mortal Kombat 11 and Final Fantasy VII Remake, I said that in some games the HDR is implemented very simple. An SDR image with a brightness of 100 nit is taken and only increases the brightness of some light sources. Apart from this, the image remains as dim as in SDR. Hitman 3 is also this case. For example, set the maximum brightness to 50, which will correspond to 5000 nits. Now look at the actual peak brightness of the game. Brightness is very low, sometimes around 100 nits. Brightness values over 1000 nits will only appear when you're looking at sources such as sun, glare, lamps, etc. Now about the black point. You are probably wondering why the game has such low contrast and washed-out colors. This is due to the incorrect black level. When you look at the darkest object, the lower edge of the signal should be as close to 0 as possible. In this case, the black will truly black, and the image will have the correct contrast and correct colors. But in the case of Hitman 3, the lower limit of the signal is very far from 0. Of course, the game has a gamma setting, and you probably want to compensate for the black level with this. But you can't. The only thing you can definitely do with the gamma parameter is to change the contrast of the user interface. The real image of the game will hardly change. If I try to fix the black level and peak brightness in the video editor, then this is how the game should look like.
Welcome.
Welcome. Hello. Good to see you. How lovely to see so many familiar.
To sum up, this is all very funny and very sad. To get an acceptable picture, you can turn on the DTM mode of your TV and try to adjust the black level of your TV. Or you can turn off HDR and play without wasting your nerves. I hope the video was helpful. Like and subscribe to the channel. Bye!